So last we saw you, you were deep in thought before the auction, trying to put the team together. Now the team has been put together. The 8th of April is when your campaign begins. Any thoughts on the captain, how that process is coming about to select the leader for your squad?
Yes, we're still in deep thought.
Yeah.
Because it has to be a well thought out decision. And it's not just a one person's decision. We are very fortunate to have an excellent think tank. Jacques Carles being our head coach, Simon Catich, our assistant coach, then our bowling coach who's come on board is Heath Streak. Then we have a really terrific analyst, Shrikant. So we have, and many of us who have our own ideas and inputs as well. Ultimately, they're the ones who will actually take the call. But I must say, we are also fortunate that we have some very interesting options. And I think there's a lot of thought being given to what's the appropriate way of handling this. So let's wait and see, hopefully in short order.
So, okay, I won't push you for who the name will be, who that player will be. But, I mean, you're the CEO of the franchise and you're a CEO as well. So, I'm sure you've always been on that table when someone has come to you and applied for an interview of a job. Supposing someone is coming to apply for the captaincy of KKR, as the CEO, the 3 questions that you would ask them always.
Far from me to be asking questions of experienced cricketers, but see, I sort of think of it from a different perspective, and I sort of see the role of a captain as the role of a leader of an organization and say what are the attributes and what do we want to see there. See, at the end of the day, I think the credibility of the person is going to be critical. Because then it's all about communication and how people receive you, and once there is credibility ideally coming in, that's a big plus. Otherwise you have to have the wherewithal to establish that quickly, and a lot of that has to do with how you lead by example and your own contribution to the cause of the team. So I think a lot of it is T20, of course, there are experts who know much more than me, but I think tactically, yes, there is a saying that we've heard people say that every ball is an event. So to that extent, yes, are there tactics, but are there so many that have to happen within that 120 balls when the side is fielding? Because captaincy is frankly substantially relevant on the field when the side is fielding and bowling, as opposed to batting. So within that, are there those tactical moments? Yes. Does the person need to have that acumen and experience to implement those things? Yes. But to me, a lot of it is about leadership. And leadership to me is about credibility, about relating to people. And so it's often referred to as man management, people management. And so how is that communication going? How do you connect and be able to understand the mindset? Because whether you like it or not, in IPL format, in T20 format, which is such a compressed period of time, you're not teaching new skills to anybody. They come in with skills, and that's how you build your team as well. So it's about how it can all be harnessed together. And so that's what a leader does well. And a lot of it is about communication and just creating that environment in the dressing room, or contributing to the creation of that, because it's not that one individual who's creating that, it's the support staff. I've been part of dressing rooms before and after the game, and things that the head coach says generally is the one. Team meetings, it's the head coach who's actually running it, and yes, the captain participates, but it's generally head coach is asking, skipper, anything from you? And I've seen skippers who basically say nothing, I don't have anything to add, and that's great, that's their style. But there are others who are more proactive in doing all that. So, I don't know whether I've summarized it to the 3 things, but I would definitely say the first and foremost is, for me, the credibility. And a big part of that is not having any agendas and really coming across as someone who is genuine and who is really looking to win and will do anything for the cause of the team. So the team comes first. The second is really about how do you relate to people and the communication that goes with it, especially when people are doing well, they get a lot of accolades. When people are not doing well, And in our case, maybe there's another angle to it, which is we have chosen to invest in some youngsters.
Yeah.
And that's very exciting for us. I think the challenge for these youngsters is to be able to make that transition. I mean, they obviously have got the attention of the think tank, which is why we have invested, and other teams have too. So now, can they make that transition? So how does this individual, as the captain of the ship, be able to pull all these things together? Is really how we would look at the right individual.
So that was the question I wanted to come to, in fact, because you've got a lot of young boys in your team who have a lot of talent, immense talent, but probably lack the experience of playing at the biggest stage, at the stage where they will be playing now. So that's why that father figure kind of personality in a captain, is that also something you'll be looking out for? On the field, at least.
See, in an ideal world, yes, but we shouldn't underestimate the role that the support staff plays. For example, I look at our head coach and say Jacques Kallis, perhaps one of the greatest all-rounders, as people put it, since Sir Garfield Sobers. Now, I've seen experienced players who have come into our dressing room and they look at a Jacques Kallis, they are in awe. Here's somebody who's done some amazing things. But he has the style to make people so comfortable, even though he's not a very talkative type of person. But even the few things that he says, and how he communicates with them and just gives them a pat on the back or says something to them. I remember one situation where Surya Kumar Yadav had just scored some crucial runs and won us a game, and he had played some interesting shots, with a little flick over fine leg for 6 and all that, and Coach Kallis, he basically said, Surya, one of these days you got to teach me how to play that shot. And this guy was like, Jacques Kallis is asking, So those are little things, and so everybody contributes to that. So I don't feel like the entire responsibility has got to be on the captain. And there are many players, senior players, who are not in a captaincy position or vice captaincy or whatever it is. They all step in and play a role there. So we're fortunate to have such players in our lineup who will all play a role.
A bunch of leaders, you're saying.
Exactly. See, I think leadership is, everyone knows who's in charge and who's calling the shots. No question about that. But to be ready to contribute when that person is reaching out to you means that you are also playing a leadership role. And it can come from the youngest guy there. I mean, Kuldeep Yadav, until now, he was our youngest player. And he was never short of suggestions or ideas, or even when he was bowling, to suggest field changes and things like that. And the captain took it on board and made those changes. So I think it's a collective thing. Yes, in an ideal world, if you have somebody who is with that experience, who also comes across as a father figure, it's great. But I don't think it's absolutely necessary that one person has to take on all that burden.
So a word on the owner of KKR, Mr. Shah Rukh Khan. How much of a role does he have in deciding who the captain is? And has he given you any communication on who the captain should be or what kind of a captain you should be selecting?
See, he's got great instincts, and even though for obvious reasons he doesn't follow the game as much as we do and track everything, but I'm always amazed at the extent to which he keeps track of everything, and his instincts are brilliant, and that's what has made him who he is. And so when we always run this by him and we discuss, and we never get a directive from him to say, this is what you should do. That's not how he operates. He's somebody who has a very nice way of putting his ideas across.
Okay.
And always, almost always, these ideas are very good ideas, and we take it on board. But he generally is the type, when even the way I operate in terms of running the business, is he gives us a lot of freedom, but he has a nice way of putting his ideas across. So he is involved very much in that sense. And before we take the call, it'll always be a collective decision to say this is what it is, and if there's a different point of view, we take that on board as well.
So since you've been following the 2020 format, I'll give you a stat, sir. In the history of the IPL, we've had 44 captains who are batsmen and 7 captains who are bowlers. So clearly stats tell you a story. Do you also agree with this, that batsmen probably make better captains in the IPL as opposed to a bowler? The stats are telling you that.
That's an interesting stat. I don't necessarily agree with that, uh, because I think it's a matter of who's the right person for that job, and it just might have happened. I'll have to believe it's a coincidence rather than it being a conscious strategy. I can see in the longer format of the game, people have said that bowlers either underbowl themselves or they overbowl themselves, or captains, and I can see that logic. But in a T20 format, if you're a bowler, you can bowl a maximum of 4 overs, so there's no question of underbowling yourself.
Yeah.
And as a captain, you will have to probably go out and still get the job done. So I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think it's a matter of these attributes that we spoke about. Who's in the best position to take on that leadership mantle, and who comes with those attributes. So if it's a bowler, great. For that logic, you can say that somebody who has the best vantage point is a wicket keeper. So I'm wondering, within those stats, how many are wicket keepers who are captains? But wicket keepers play a very important role in all of these things. So for me, it could very well be a bowler, and in our case also, who knows? So we'll wait and see.
Final question, sir.
Yes.
Won't ask you to give a name, but could you at least tell us how many players are being considered for the role of captain in KKR?
So, I think it wouldn't be out of place to talk about how we are thinking, because we're very fortunate. I think there are probably 4 or 5 potential candidates, just based on their experience also. I mean, you can look at, for example, Piyush Chawla, who has captained a lot, and he's been playing cricket forever.
Yeah.
So there's no shortage of experience there, and he's one of the most successful bowlers in IPL history. You can look at a Chris Lynn, who's got a terrific cricketing brain. He's captained his state, and so there's somebody like that. You can look at a Dinesh Karthik, who has captained his state and captained in various different formats. You can look at a Robin Uthappa, who has been there. You can look at a Vinay Kumar, who's probably got more captaincy experience than anyone else in our lineup, for that matter, and won more trophies.
Yeah, successful.
And then you can go completely out of the box and look at one of the youngsters as well. Who knows? But we're fortunate that there are potential options here. It may not be one that says, okay, this is the obvious one, it jumps out, but there are very few obvious sort of captains. We have seen situations within IPL where some of the automatic choices were named as captain, but for one reason or the other, that change occurred later. These are international captains who dropped themselves because of form or something else, or that 4 foreigner rule. So I don't think there's a set formula, and you can judge that by captains who have consistently captained over the last 10 years. You can probably count in 2 or 3 fingers, how many there were. Otherwise, there have been changes, or new leaders have emerged. So we think it's a great opportunity to identify, and we also feel good that we have all these options. But I'm sure a good collective decision will be made soon, and I would we know, just based on the communication that's going back and forth, even with our followers and our fans, that they all have many ideas, which is great. And so we're taking everything on board, and hopefully we'll make the right decision.